Again, thanks so much for taking the time to come and learn about connections for Dynamics SL. What we're actually going to do, if we go to the next slide, is talk and actually take some content that was used at our Convergence this year. So what Convergence is every year Microsoft puts on something called Convergence where all the Dynamics products come together. And this is where we have sessions that are strictly focused on Microsoft Dynamics SL products like Dynamics SL. And one of the top-rated sessions that we had here was around called Mythbusters, Connecting Explained. Now what we're going to be doing in this section is we kind of had the idea that we were going to use TV shows as our themes for our different sessions, just so we didn't come up with boring titles. So this year what we've done is we've gone ahead and we used the idea of a very popular show called Mythbusters. And the idea is that many times when you attend a session like this, you hear someone like myself on the presentation telling you how wonderful and easy it is to use these new great features of Dynamics SL. And in this case, we're going to talk about different ways you can connect Dynamics SL to other products, whether it's other functionality, SharePoint, Outlook, Microsoft Project, Microsoft Dynamics CRM. The thing that I really like about this session is we're going to do two things. We're going to talk about myths that people talk about, whether they feel it's too hard or things are hard or impossible to do. Then I'll do the nice demonstration real quickly to show you how it is definitely possible to do it. But the thing that I think is most important about this session is we have Carolyn here who's going to give you the, here's the real view, okay? It looked great. Here are the things that you need to think about. And we're calling it our shopping list, but what are the things that you need to have at your company set up to start taking advantage of this? And the idea behind the session is that you'll be able to take this information, talk to whoever your partner is, and say, yep, I saw this great session about this particular feature. These are the things that we need. What do we have, and what do we need to do to start using this great new feature? So that's going to be the flow of it today. And again, if you have any questions, we will address them at the end of the session as we get through the content. With that, Ms. Carolyn, what is that first myth?
Well, the first myth on the table is that there's really no way to make storing financial documents easy and accessible in SL. Right now, a lot of pain points are that they have to print out the reports. So they're actually going to a printer you have to deal with. If the printer's online, if you need updated drivers, you name it. Storing those reports in a filing cabinet once you do print them out. Manually searching for the reports. Saving reports to your local machine. Again, you have to try and find them. Sharing those reports to others. It's just very cumbersome.
Yeah, I've heard that one. Well, let me tell you some things that I think that might be able to help us out with this. Well, and a feature that was added to Microsoft Dynamics SL back in 7.0, and we continue to enhance it here in SL 2011 world, is called Doc Share. And it is really based around that same idea. The idea is that if I have a document and I want to be able to take it and share it with other people in the company, I don't want to have to share it, save it locally, email it to somebody and say, here's the document, and if it gets updated, worried about, hey, did I send up the latest version of it? Nice thing about it is that it wants to take documents and go ahead and save them up onto a website. In this case, we're using a technology that you've probably heard of called Windows SharePoint technology. Now, it can be used for a myriad of different reasons. It can be used from anything from a help desk location to a document repository, which is really what we're kind of using it for in this case. So we're going to be able to take specific documents that are in SL and automatically upload those to a SharePoint site. Now, what are the type of items? Well, out of the box, these are the ones that come that are available to you right out of the box out of Dynamics SL. You can see different customer documents. We have vendor documents and project documents. And there's a way to go ahead and set up all these different areas. One thing to note is that as far as what you can save them as, well, here's the list right here. They can be saved pretty much as any of those different type of documents. Now, if it's information you're going to be working on together, maybe it's a Word document, or if it's something that you don't want to be touched, obviously a PDF document is a great option to show and store data as a PDF because it cannot be touched. Now, the idea is that now once it's stored there, if someone wants to work together with you on this or learn more about it, I don't have to give them access to Microsoft Dynamics SL. that document sitting on a SharePoint site where they just need to get access to the site, and then they're able to go ahead and view the documents. With that in mind, why don't I go ahead and, if you could give me the ability, Ms. Carolyn, I'll go ahead and start giving them a quick. All right, I can't see if do I have that yet.
You should have it.
All right. Oh, yep, there it is, finally. Sorry about that. All right, Karen, can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. So I want to go through a quick demonstration of, okay, we talk about SharePoint. First of all, obviously, if I want to put a document and share it on a SharePoint site, the first thing I'm going to need is to be able to create that site. And, you know, Jeff, what do I need to know? Well, the nice thing about it is once it's set up, to be able to set up a new site is just basically me giving you, as an administrator, giving you access rights. So if you open up the screen like the vendor, or the customer, or the project maintenance screen, you'll notice that there are new icons on the top of the desktop if you happen to have this thing set up or installed. And the first one is here, the Create SharePoint site. Now, how do I create a SharePoint site? Well, it's pretty simple. All I do is I click on the button, and it's going to go ahead and default and say, okay, I'm ready to go ahead and create a site for you. Well, you've got a couple different options, and I'll just talk briefly about what they are. Now, the first idea is that for every project or customer or vendor that you have out there, that you want a SharePoint site dedicated just to that project, customer, or vendor. Good idea, especially if you're going to be doing other things along with it. You know, maybe we'll be using that site to store documents around a project, project plans, whatever you might have. The next option that's not highlighted says Create New SharePoint Document Library. What this will do instead is, instead of creating one SharePoint site for every project, it'll create one SharePoint site for all projects and then create subdirectories for each different project. Another way, it's a very good optional way in case that's something you'd rather have everything located in one SharePoint site with just different folders hanging off of it. And the last option, it says link to existing SharePoint URL, and this is the example here. If you guys are already using SharePoint, hey Jeff, we've been using SharePoint for a while, didn't know about this feature, this is a great thing. We want to connect to sites that we already have, and that last option will allow you to do so. The next thing is it's going to, based on where you've told the system to create SharePoint sites, it's going to go ahead and put in that URL, which you really don't need to touch. But then you can go in and change the title or the site description. So when someone opens up the site, they definitely know exactly what they're looking at. Next, it defaults to, in this case, the two different types of documents it's going to be able to share. So those will automatically be set up for you. To officially create the site, all I need to do is click OK. It lets me know it's created it. Now I can go ahead and take a look at it. Now if the site's been created, the next button you notice is now enabled. That allows me to jump right to that screen. There's the site. It's up and available for me to start sharing documents out there. Next thing, let's go ahead and go through, well, how do I get a document up there? Well, in the case of going through the process of printing invoices out of the project modules, in this case flexible billings, what will happen is, because I have a project set up and I've told it that I automatically want to upload documents to there, so if I go in, I do an invoice print, and it prints the invoice, what we'll do instead of actually printing out is it's actually going to put it up there for me. So if I close out and jump into that site, I'll notice that we now have a new document under flexible billing invoices that's available to me. So there it is. So I'm able to go ahead and take a document. Again, all I had to do to get up there was click a button to create the site. After the site's been created, all I needed to do is release my invoices, and I know that they're being stored up there now. Now, one other thing that's been made available, and I didn't quite talk about it, but I want to expand on it since I have this open here right now, is we have also the ability with SL 2011 to take any report and put it up on a SharePoint site. So not just those ones that are set up to automate, but we now can take any report. So what you'll do is you'll pull up the report. This particular one here is a project profitability report. And we'll notice there's an option under printer options that allows you to go ahead and upload to SharePoint. Now once that's clicked, it's going to go ahead and say, well, where do you want to put it? By using the setup option, we can go ahead and first choose how we're going to save it. Okay, we'll save it as a Word document. We can then click on our destinations, and I know where they're generally located, so I can tell it search for any of the sites that are available out there. And it says, okay, based on what you entered into the system, here are all the available sites that I could go ahead and share them to. So I'm going to go put that in the SharePoint documents location, and the shared documents location, excuse me. Click OK, and click OK here, and hit upload, and that document's now been uploaded. So similar type of functionality, which you can see it's great. I can go ahead and get the documents up there. There's the one that we had out there available to put up there as well. So great new functionality. One, based on the DocShare functionality that's been out there, that we would continue to enhance and make better, but also about this new upload to SharePoint. So Carolyn, if you take over here, what do you think? Did you think I did pretty good with that?
Absolutely. I think one of my favorite options there was in the automated invoice print for flexible billing. There was actually an option there that if, at one particular time or another, you don't want that invoice to be put up on the SharePoint site, you want to actually print it, it'll let you override it. So you get the best of both worlds that way.
Excellent. Excellent.
Now, one thing also to share is that you can have that flexibility to print your reports in Business Portal to your SharePoint as well. So you can see from our screenshot in the Report Scheduler screen in Business Portal, you have the option down at the bottom to send that report to SharePoint. So I don't know about everybody else on the phone today, but I would definitely say this myth is busted. You can definitely very easily share and distribute your documents out of SL. So let's go through the shopping list. Okay, basically right off the bat, you're going to want to make sure that you're on a supported operating system. And that's going to be your Windows Server 2008, 64, or R2 64. You can also go to Windows Server 2012. You'll want your updated SQL Server. Now, all of these are basically comparable to what you'll need if you're running SL 2011 and 2011 FP1 anyway. So you most likely have these already in place. You'll also notice that it is supported on SQL Server 2012 Standard or Enterprise Edition. You'll also want to make sure that you are running your SharePoint Foundation, which is the free download, or you can also use the SharePoint Server 2010. Note that SharePoint is 64-bit only, so that's why you need to have those higher-level operating systems running. If you have any prior SharePoint sites that you need to upgrade, if you're looking at upgrading to 2011 to take advantage of this feature and the other features that we're going to be talking about today, you may need to look into what is necessary to upgrade those previous sites, say from SharePoint 2007, which are 32-bit, up to that 64-bit. You'll also want to make sure that you're on SL 7 FP1 or higher. So yes, those of you that are still on 7 FP1 can take full advantage of the DocShare feature. Your Microsoft Dynamics SL SharePoint Web Services or the Microsoft Office 2010 for the Microsoft SL 2011 FP1. You'll also need to make sure that you're running Application Server for SL. This is a module that is automatically installed when selected during your main server installation. No SL license is required for this to be running in the background to run your reports. If you need to find it, it is located under the Foundation module group in the module Application Server.
That's an interesting note back there. Carolyn. So if you're on SL 2011 Feature Pack 1 and you install that, that removes the need to install the SL SharePoint Web Service. So, and if you have Office 2010 installed and SL 2011 Feature Pack 1 and that's where you're starting, then you don't need that SharePoint Web Services. But if you don't, you need that SharePoint Web Service for it to actually be able to upload the documents successfully. So, good point there.
So one of the points that Jeff noted is that there is some setup and configuration that you need to make sure that you do to have this functionality. For the DocShare piece, you will need to go into the SharePoint site configuration screen under Administration, SharePoint Site Configuration, and set the defaults that you're wanting for your customer, vendor, and projects. So, Jeff, are you ready for another myth?
I think I am.
Well, the next one on the list is where it's really not too easy to send emails or faxes from within SL. You usually, again, you have to print it out, go across the office, hope that nobody else is monopolizing the fax machine, or in our office, a copier that does everything, and everything meaning everyone in the office is using it at the same time. Is there an easy way in SL that SL takes on that responsibility and gets that out for us versus me having to stand in line? I know printing a report, again, manually faxing that report, got to export the report to the local machine, getting the proper email address. Never fails. You go to enter in the to address, and you have 4 or 5 different John B. aliases in there. Inevitably, I always pick the wrong one.
I understand.
Locating the correct report. If it's not named correctly when you print it to file, then you've got to go in and reprint it to make sure you can find it. Attaching the report to the email is just very cumbersome.
You know, I think I might be able to help you with this one again. So there's a feature that was added back again in Feature Pack 1 that helped with the automating of the faxing and emailing. So it removed that idea that, one, you had to print it out and go find location, find the document, find the fax machine, hopefully it was available to go ahead and send it. Or if you wanted to email it, that you'd go ahead and save it locally. Hopefully you remembered where you saved it along with the pictures from your latest vacation, and make sure that you were sending the proper documents to the proper people. Obviously things that we all kind of deal with on a day-to-day basis. So wouldn't it be great, instead of me having to remember how to do all of that, if I could click a button and have it do it for me automatically? Here we're going to be doing things around customer documents that we have out there, vendor documents, and we introduce something a little differently here with payroll type documents. What we're doing around there is the fact that you can actually email employee advice slips to let them know that their direct deposits have taken place. So again, if you're not familiar with those, there's some great options there as far as the different areas that we do. And you'll see that they're very similar to what we have DocShare, but with the added ability with employees. Next, again, just like we had before with DocShare, we have the different types of formats that you can send these documents in as well. Again, I would see a PDF being a pretty popular way to send a document. And with that, I think we're going to go ahead. If we do this correctly again, I'll go ahead and show a nice demonstration of how we can go ahead and send a document via email. All right. We're getting better every time, I tell you, Carolyn. So just like we had over in DocShare, okay, what's the process of me having to set things up? So the first thing let's do is take a look at our vendor maintenance screen. And if you've seen vendor maintenance screen in the last version or so, you'll notice that we now have the ability to, let's go pick here, City Power and Light. We have a new tab that's been there since SL7 Feature Pack 1, and it's been continually enhanced. Now on the vendor side, really the only documents we're sending are purchase orders. So we have, that's the only type of document, but obviously with customers, projects, and employees, you have the ability to set up the same bit of information. Now one of the things that was added in the Feature Pack 1 in the 2011 timeframe was this new idea of an order from ID. So we can go ahead and obviously within the vendors, you have different PO addresses that you can use, and you can have them be used to set up the different ways, based on which PO address you choose, which way the documents should be sent, who they should be emailed to as well. So you do have that ability to choose your default. Again, delivery methods, whether it's email, fax, you do have that option. You also have, as we said, the ability to specify email addresses, who's going to get the return email address, and what type of document should be attached to it. Now you also have some other options around being able to say who the receiver's email address should be based on the purchase order's address, or who should be the person that's the email is coming from based on the buyer's email address. So you have to do some additional functionality that's continued to be added based on some great feedback like customers like yourself. Now once we have this set up, this is the default information that will be used when City Power and Lights are being sent emails. Now the other bit of information, you do have additional receivers, so if it's more than one person that you want to go ahead and send to, you can click on that button and add as many people as you like. The next thing is at the bottom, we do have what's going to be the subject and body of our email. Right now you can see it's generic text that we've typed in, that this is from Contoso and it's a purchase order, here it is, have at it. But what we can do too as well is adding these wildcard characters like company name in brackets or purchase order, reference number, document amount, company name. The nice thing about it is when you use those values, it really personalizes the email. So as we save this and save out of here, if we were to go into the purchase order screen, let's pull up an existing purchase order, you'll notice that we have some buttons across the bottom that have to do with Quick Send. Now another new feature that was added in 2011 is that you saw that we spent the time to set up, this is how we want things to go to this particular vendor. But you can go ahead and override that, or if they're not set up, you can go through and do a one-time setup where I go through and say, okay, yep, I don't, in this case we know I've already set it up, but let's say for example I didn't. I could go through and set up the standard information, what should I send them, it's an email, here's the receiver, send it as a Word document, and so forth. So I have that ability to go on the fly, put it in, hit send request, or we can use the standard way where we just hit the quick send button. By hitting the quick send button, that lets me know that it's been sent correctly, and I can take a look at the inquiry screen to see a little bit more about what's going on. And we can see the date and time, the date that it was sent, what's the status that was completed, who did it get sent to, and so forth. So you have that full functionality to set up that information. You can resend them, edit requests. Why don't we go ahead in this case, take a view, take a look at it. Now this is one other enhancement that was made as well, where people would automatically quick send the documents, and they wanted to also have a hard copy of it as well. So you will have that stored as well. So you can not only just be able to quick send them, you can actually view the original as well. What's going to happen most times when you're using this? Well, things that will happen will be, for example, someone decides, well, they're not going to be with that company anymore. So what they can do is come in, and you can take an existing document that's already been sent, go ahead and edit the receiver or the reply person, and go ahead and resend that request. And once you resend the request or any item, we can go take a look at what's out there. And let's go ahead and pull up one. Let me close out of here, jump down here to Outlook. And what we'll see is that in this case, we have our purchase order that's been attached. We have all that great information. Please write and enclose not just the purchase order, but the exact purchase order number for the exact amounts, so you can actually have that personalized to them. Now likewise, along with sending the email to the vendor, in this case, we can also have it send it to you directly to let you know that, yep, it's happened, it got sent, here's who it went to, here's who it was from, and you can get notified that, yes, this in fact did go through. So Karen, what do you think of that? Great way to be able to send information to other people. Minimal setup in the beginning, but once it's set up, it's ready to rock and roll. What do you think?
Absolutely. I would definitely say this is busted, hands down. And what's nice is the application server is going to send you a notice letting you know that it has gone out in the system if you set it up that way. So you're never wondering whether or not your invoices got out.
Great.
Now, moving to the shopping list, these slides are going to be very familiar. Pretty much the same thing that we had outlined for DocShare, you're going to need for QuickSend as well. So you've got your operating systems are the same, also as your SQL versions. This is something that you can take advantage of in SL7 as well as 2011, noting your different versions of Outlook. You need to make sure to have an appropriate version of Outlook running for each version. Because if you try and put Outlook 2010 on your SL7, it's not going to work correctly. You're also going to want to have application server running. And you also want to make sure to have your Outlook client running on that application server machine so that as application server picks up those email requests, it'll be sent right out. Note that this is also compatible with Microsoft Fax Services. And again, just a reminder that the application server is available during your install of SL and no SL license is required, and where to find that. With QuickSend, there is a little bit of setup, as Jeff had mentioned. This is going to be under your Foundation Shared Information QuickSend Setup section, and you'll see from the drop-downs that from the document type, you can make that for your purchase orders, your AR invoices, your project invoices. So you can pretty much cover every base that you would potentially need to send a document out of SL.
So Carolyn, if the setup, so what this is doing by setting up the defaults, this means that when you open up to set up each of your vendors or customers, that it's one less step that you need to set up. So you can, of course, change the things for each customer, vendor, or employee, but this allows you to do it, get rid of the things that you have to do over and over again. Do it once so that makes template. Like a blanket template. Okay, excellent.
Yep, then that way if you go into your customer maintenance, pull up the QuickSend tab, select the invoice, the project invoice for that particular customer, then the criteria that you set up in this particular setup screen will just automatically default in, and then you can make changes to customize it to that customer, or you can keep them. So you want a break, or are you good with another break?
No, I think I'm good. I think I'm good.
Wipe the sweat off your brow.
Exactly.
All righty. Project management and project accounting. There's no way for them to work together, or at least it's a very frustrating, time-consuming, and arduous process to try and customize something to make it work. One of the biggest frustrations is where you're duplicating your information. You've got users entering the same information into both systems, so it's redundant. They're very disconnected. It would be nice if one talked to the other and vice versa. It would make things a lot easier for the project managers as well as the financial people. It would get the project managers that financial information that they need to make those day-to-day decisions. What can you do to help?
Well, if you're doing redundant data entry, I mean, if you click there, I mean, it's pretty easy for redundant data entry. Just get a lot of people, right?
No.
No, that's not the right answer?
That's not the overhead I'm looking for.
Oh, okay. Well, it would really help with the economy, maybe. I don't know. So I think I'm with you on that. So let's just kind of tell the story of the project accountants and the project managers. It's generally they're not two areas that always play so nice together. On one side, we've got the project managers. What are they used to? They're used to using Microsoft Project. They're used to setting up things. They've got all their resources and their shared resources and making sure that they're spending time with other project managers to make sure they get the proper people on the job. So, I mean, from their side, they're setting up these huge, complicated project plans and making sure that people are staying on track and so forth. So, they probably, would like to see a little bit of information on their project. What's the status of it? Get that financial insight as well. But, that financial information, where does that live? Well, that lives on the other side of the wall. That's the project accountants. Now, what they're saying is, hey, wait a second. If you're the project manager and you've using those same resources that I kind of have set up in my system, why can't we make it a little easier on me, the accountant, to say, okay, if you've already spent the time to set up who it is and who's on the project, it'd be great if you could just have that information flow right over into SL and set up my project for me. You could automate the setting up the project, the assigning of the resources, the creating of the budgets, so I don't have to actually manually store this information. Because as we all know, Dynamics SL has a great ability to store everything from rates and rates based on different working locations and so forth. So you have a great bit of information. So again, the accountants, they've got all the information, but also they like to make it easier on themselves so they don't have to do a lot of duplicate entry. And the project manager on the other side, they want access to that financial information as well. And don't want to have to call somebody on the phone. So wouldn't it be great if they could see all that financial information right inside the solution that they're using? So with that, I think I'm going to go ahead and give you guys a nice little demonstration of something that we have out there called the Connector for Microsoft Project Server 2010 and for Dynamics SL. Right. Now, as I was saying, with most of the people that are project type of people, the project managers live and breathe in a tool, usually Microsoft Project. In this case, we're using Microsoft Project Server. The big advantage of the server version is that if we're in a company where we're all sharing resources, we want all these projects stored on one location. So if I assign somebody a resource, that I know that they're not on any other projects, that I'm getting kind of true to life view of what's going on with this project. So if I pull up one of the projects, you're going to notice that one of the things that we have listed on here is the ability, there's a new tab that gets installed when you install this connector for Microsoft Project 2010. And it allows me to see information about Dynamics SL and connect things to SL as well. As we were speaking, we said, okay, yep, right now we've got a brand new project. Maybe it's still in the potential phase. We actually find out that, yes, we have the project and we want to start moving forward with this. We obviously don't want to send information over until we actually get the okay that we're going to be doing this project. So I can then go to the Project Info button, and what it will allow me to do is go ahead and pick the next project available. It's going to let me default to who I am as the project manager, or let me choose who the business manager should be, look up the customers, and what you'll notice is that these lookup lists, as you see here, are actual lists coming right out of Dynamics SL. They need to duplicate and store information separately. So all these little ellipses here or lookup buttons here are pulling data straight out of Dynamics SL. So a great bit of time saved here. So I fill in the information I know. Then, as we said, resources, very important, because what you want to know, you want to understand that when you're adding a resource that you're building from a team, an enterprise team, meaning a team that's been set up in the project server world. And if we go ahead and look at some of these people, you might recognize their names from many demos we do, Adam and Tracy and Wendy. And just to show you what's happening in the background is when we set this up initially, we set up who were the quote-unquote connected resources. And if I click over to the Custom Fields button, we'll see that there is actually a few fields added, like the SL Employee ID. So what this means is now this particular person that I'm choosing in Microsoft Project Server is now connected to SL. So if I were to send them over, send their information over to SL, it would know who they were and be able to pick up the actual rates for budgeting as well. So you see, as we fill out this information on the people that we want to assign, we've got all our resources available. We also have the ability to choose exactly what tasks do we want to send over. Well, it might not make sense that we're not going to bill on every single task that we have out there. Maybe we choose the level. And you have that flexibility, which I think is really nice. So we might choose that business initiation is something that we're going to bill, but we're not going to get down to the details and show them exactly what we're doing. But maybe under software, we do need to get to the nitty-gritty and go to the different sides. We're not just going to do for software. We're going to do all the different things that are happening. So you have the ability to type in or set up the tasks based on really your needs, how we're going to be billing. Then the next step is to go ahead and save and publish this project when we're ready and we've actually assigned resources and published and assigned tasks. So now when we go ahead and we send it, it's going to automatically send that information over to Microsoft Dynamics SL. Now if we jump in, let's just do it since we're up here. Let's jump into the business portal. Again, people will get notified that a new project has been added. And I'll just jump in here and look at it through the web client. And if I scroll down here, there we go, so there's Fabricam. I can click on the project, click on Edit, and we'll see that the basic information has been set up for this project already. Again, saving my project accounting team time because I didn't have to start from nowhere and start pumping in information. So what I can do here is then check out the accounting information, make adjustments. It's going to default based on some default settings that you set up in the project. And then I can view all the tasks that we chose. So we can see a couple of those ones that we set up. Again, it's just business initiation, network hardware. We see the details in the software area as well. So it's great. It's able to send that information over automatically. So as a project accountant, I'm quite excited because I didn't have to spend time adding all these tasks to the system. Okay, very good. But what about now going forward? What if they add a project over in the SL on the project side? Well, that'll come over. How about up from the SL side? Well, let's take a look. If I click on this side, you know what? They always forget this one task. It's a task that I call executive review. Again, we're gonna charge for it, but it's something that it's kind of our big deal. We like to show people that yes, all the big guys are looking at these. Every project's very important to us. So then I've added that new task to this project, and I can choose right here whether I want to send it over to Microsoft Project or not. We'll go ahead and choose yes. We'll go ahead and save it. And if I go ahead and jump over back into Microsoft Project, the next time I open up the project, we will see that that project gets sent over. So very good. It's now that it's connected, any changes along the way, whenever we publish or save things, there is a connector sitting in between these two that's monitoring, and as things happen, it's passing the data back and forth. Now, other things that you can do as well, what's going to happen with your project? Well, more than likely, as you're going along, something's going to happen, and you want to create your budget first. So since we want to create our budget, we can click on the Load Budget button, and it'll automatically create our budget for us. You'll notice I'm viewing this budget information right within inside of Microsoft Project. Looks kind of familiar. I'm viewing a Business Portal page right inside of Microsoft Project. Very cool. Now, the next thing that's going to happen, of course, is once we load our budget, the next thing that's going to happen is, of course, I'm going to decide to make a change on the project side. Go ahead and do so forth, change it up to 48 hours. Now I can go ahead and say, you know, now I'm going to go ahead and load just the budget for that task. I just made a change to that one task. Let's just load the new budget there. It's just loaded that one task. There's the adjustment, and now I have that available to go forward. Now we're going to look at a different project here. Here's a project where a lot more work has been done on it. We can see there's a lot more time put into it. And two important things around the project manager side. On the project management side is not being able to see your financial information. Well, you saw already that we're able to load our budgets and view them, but we also can do things like going forward and looking at our project and task net profit. So if I take a look at that, I can see a lot of information. I can see the different account categories, what the total amounts. I can drill into any of these to get details that you see that are set up as hyperlinks. And for example, I can look at the commitment and click on that and see that in fact that there was a goods for project that was created for Fabricam. Here was the amount, the quantity, and it was entered obviously as a purchase order. So I'm able to actually drill and get the details and see exactly what's going on there. I can get the details around who's been putting their time against this project and drill down to see that, yep, it's Adam, he's been putting his time, and I agree that, yep, that looks pretty right. Those look to be the amounts of time that he spent over those several days. So what do you think, Carolyn? Some great bit of functionality around the project and being able to connect the two together. What do you think?
Oh, I think it's wonderful. It is going to be it'd be so much easier to be able to have it entered into one and it automatically be pulled over into the other. So truly, Project Server 2010 and Microsoft Dynamics SL, they talk and share well with each other.
Excellent, excellent.
So I would definitely say, hands down, that is another one, yet another one, you have busted.
Not to brag, but I'm doing pretty well. What do you think? Let's show them that lovely. Let's show them that lovely shopping list. I bet they're going to see a lot of familiar things.
I think that's one of the nicest thing about all these features is that once when you upgrade to SL 2011 and forward to FP1, the System Requirements Guide is going to take care of you to be able to take advantage of all these features. Again, you're going to see SharePoint because you do have that business portal integration piece. Just a reminder on the SharePoint 2010 is 64-bit going forward. Now this one does have a little bit of a difference where you do need the Microsoft Project Server 2010. You also have the Project Professional 2010 and the Project Server Web Access. And that'll create that link for you.
So with the yeah, and a note here too, with Project Server Web Access, we do list that you could use that we definitely need Project Server 2010. You can't use the standard. It's a little misleading here. I think I forgot to make some edits here because definitely Microsoft Dynamics SL Business Portal can run on any version of Project Server. SharePoint Server, 2010, not the freebie version because of the need for Project Server. Because Project Server does need the standard Project Server 2010. Also, it needs the Project Server Web Access requires that as well. So just as a side note for that as well.
You will want to have SL 2011 Service Pack 1 or higher. We're always going to encourage you to go to FP1 because it just gets better when you get to FP1. You're going to want your business portal for SL 2011 Service Pack 1 or higher. The project connector, Jeff had mentioned that connector kind of sits in the background, making sure that the two are talking to each other. And the project integration service running on the server. As with the other options, project connector setup is within the SL application. So under the project controller setup screen down in the lower right-hand corner, there's the project connector setup screen. And that will actually allow you to set up your connection information. And if you see down at the bottom the send communicator message when, that will actually send an email to whomever you designate there that a new project was created on the Microsoft project side so that they can just kind of keep tabs on it and make sure that everything continues to flow back and forth as necessary. Alrighty, Jeff, we've got one more. The CRM and accounting systems can only be connected through a third-party solution.
Yeah, that's the way it used to be. Yes, if you wanted to connect Microsoft Dynamics CRM to Microsoft Dynamics SL, there wasn't something out of the box. So, but what were the important points? What was the need there, or what was the pain points?
Well, I know over the years CRM has become more and more popular with people because of its flexibility and customizability. But again, it was the same type of pain points as they were seeing with Project, where there was a lot of duplicate information going in one side, setting up customers in SL. You'd have to turn around and set the customer up over into your CRM system. It was very redundant going back and forth. Again, a huge disconnect between the two solutions. And it delays information, especially when you're trying to get information to your customers.
All right. So there's our delay.
There's a lot of confusion and frustration. And you don't want that. Your customers need to come first, and they need to feel that.
All right. All right. Well, I guess I'm jumping right into the demo, aren't I? Just jump right in.
I learn by watching. That's just me.
There you go. I'm with you. I'm with you. All right. So let's talk about it first. There is a connector for CRM that actually comes from Microsoft. So Microsoft several years ago started creating, it's called the connector for Microsoft Dynamics. And it is used across multiple different products. And with the release of Dynamics SL 2011 and specifically Service Pack 1, we were able to add Dynamics SL as one of the products that supports it. Now, because it is a connector, a generic connector, it will connect using what came out in SL 2011, which is our customer web service. This allows you to get data, to look up data in SL, to take a look at it, as well as being able to put data into SL. The nice thing about it is we're going to ship you the connector with our connections, but because it's a tool and a service that runs in the background, you are able to open it up and make adjustments. So for example, let's say you at your company that you're working with, the user fields are very important, or specific fields in the SL screen that are not out of the box being sent over. Well, just to let you know before I show this demo, there is a way for you to open up this connector, and since you've got the web service, which is exposing all those fields in the customer table, that you can go ahead and use it to make your own adjustments and make it set up the way that you want to. So with that in mind, I'm going to show you a quick demonstration of how these two can connect. So I'm inside Microsoft Dynamics CRM. It can be accessed via the web, or it can be accessed with inside of Microsoft Outlook. So I am here in the option here to go ahead and view it instead of Internet Explorer or via the web. And as I go in and I start to set up a new customer or a new account or potential account, I can go ahead and start typing in information. There are certain fields that will be set up that will be set to be the default fields to go ahead and be set up to send over to SL, one being the account number. And what you'll do here is when you actually set up Microsoft CRM like you do in SL, you have the ability to customize the screen. So you can customize this account number field to equal the same type of values that you have over in SL. So if your account numbers in SL are 4 characters long and they're alphanumeric, you can set up the same type of limitations here over in the CRM so that when you create an account here, that the number will flow over and not be a duplicate. You can then go ahead and start setting up information such as, your phone, fax, websites, email, kind of your standard information. The next field that we use as kind of a key field to send over would be your address type. We use the address type primary to let us know what is the primary address for this potential customer, and also uses that address when it sends data over to SL. So as I enter my information, city, state, zip, country, and so forth, I can go ahead and set that information up. We'll then get down to some information that you're more familiar with on the accounting side of the house, such as setting up credit limits and payment terms. Again, another side note about this as well, just like you have over in setting up certain fields, you have the ability again to customize this, and this is, as a side note, a setup step that you do need to make sure that the payment terms that you list in this drop-down box are valid payment terms that are set over in Microsoft Dynamics SL as well. Again, it's a one-time thing. Once you set it up, everything's fine going forward, but just as kind of a note, since we're kind of getting into a little bit of the what needs to be done. Once we have that information in the system, we can go ahead and save our account. Now, what generally is going to happen is we're going to get a new account that you can kind of think of as a prospect. Potentially they will be a customer. We can go ahead and start using this information, storing it in here, contacting them. Hey, we get the go. These guys are actually going to be a customer of ours. We're all excited. So in the past, what you'd have to do is probably print out this information and somehow attach it to an email or print it out and put it in someone's desk and say, okay, we've got this new Fabricam. Go ahead and set them up. Well, luckily with the connections, we have a new button called Submit, which will allow you to automatically take this data and submit it into Dynamics SL. Now, just for our purposes today, we'll show that what will happen next is it will go ahead and it will run into this thing called the integration, connector integration. Now, what will happen in the background, and generally you would not see this, but since we're giving a demo here, we can take a look of, again, the ability to go ahead and map accounts, add fields on the CRM side, tell them where they need to go back and forth. We can also view exactly what's happened in this particular one to see what's happening, and we can say, yep, if I refresh this list and I click on it, I can see that the account that we just set up in CRM has flown over to Dynamics SL. Again, you wouldn't generally see this connector, but since we're giving a quick demo of how things kind of work on the back end, I wanted to kind of show you that. Next thing is when we call up the customer maintenance screen, we'll see that that customer has been created with the customer ID and name that we had. We'll also see that the shipping addresses, basically using that information, the addresses that we set up for Fabricam, will automatically set up under the shipping addresses for the customer. We also have the ability to view the addresses that were sent over as well. Along with that, we can also see the customer contacts. Now, if you recall, we didn't really set up who a contact was over on the CRM side. Just to show you that the information, once they're connected, the information will flow back and forth. We can do the same thing here. I can click on customer contacts, set it up. We use the type of other as our contact. Start typing in their information. I can even use the copy functionality built in the SL to copy that data up here so I don't have to type it over and over again. Put in my email addresses, save that information. Again, when I save that, and save this as well, and as we go, we can take a quick look to see that the contacts were actually sent over correctly. Again, we'll view the map for this, do a refresh, and we see that that one record has been written back. And how do we prove that that actually did happen? Well, if we go ahead and close out of here, we pull up and scroll down and look for our Fabricam. There they are. There's Fabricam. And I'm going to scroll down to look at the contacts. All right, let's see all of the contacts, not just the My Contacts. And there he is. Joe User has been set up. So you see that whether I'm in CRM or in SL, that the data will flow back and forth. I can send it over to SL or for SL back. And as a one last side note before I let Carolyn tell you about the great things that are needed to run this, is that we also, during the initial setup, will allow you to take all of your SL contacts and pump them into CRM for you automatically. This way you don't have to worry about setting them all up initially. You can go ahead and let the connector take care of it. So Carolyn, what do you think?
Slick. Very nice. Again, you've got that constant data flow back and forth. You just can't go wrong with that, and it's going to save so much time. I would definitely say, once again, you've busted it. There is definitely a good, solid connection between CRM and Dynamics SL. So let's get into that shopping list. Once again, with your operating systems in SQL, it's the same requirement across everything. In this case, you can use the SharePoint Foundation as well as your other SharePoint Server 2010 and SharePoint Online. This is available with SL 2011 Service Pack 1 and higher. You will want the SL Customer Web Service. You are going to want the CRM 2011 with the latest updates. As you noticed in Jeff's demonstration, that connector. So you will need that connector for Microsoft Dynamics, so it's the two products in talk. And the Microsoft Dynamics User License for Connector. For CRM, as with the other ones, there is a part where you need to go in and set up your default and connection information. Once you set that up, you're pretty well good to go. Jeff, I can't believe you debunked 4 myths in this afternoon.
You know, I try. So just to recap some of the great things we saw today. Again, the first one we talked about was DocShare, and that's the ability to share documents. And this way we're talking about storing them up on a SharePoint site. That's whether that's on-premise SharePoint, or we didn't know if we talked about it. We also support SharePoint Online, I think, as Carolyn spoke of. QuickSend, the idea of getting documents to people, getting them to your employees, to vendors, to customers. Again, automating that process so you don't have to do it manually. Project Connector. We've got Microsoft Project Server 2010 out there. We have a way to connect that data together. And last but of course not least, if you're a Microsoft Dynamics CRM user or you're thinking about using Dynamics CRM, it's great to know that there's a connector that works for this product as well. And that very nicely, it can expand beyond what we present to you. We give you the basic connections, allow you to take it on and move forward beyond that. Now with that we kind of conclude our presentation. Carol, I think the next thing we're supposed to do, if I'm not mistaken, if you have any questions, you have the ability to enter them in here. And Carolyn and I would be happy to answer your questions.
Thank you so much, Carolyn and Jeff. This is great information. As Jeff mentioned, we'll go ahead and open it up for questions. So you can submit those using your questions pane on the GoToWebinar console. And If you think of a question after our session has ended today, feel free to submit those using the email address of msdynamicsevents@gmail.com, and we can always follow up with you after the session. The session is recorded today, so we hope to have it available for viewing in the near future on our Dynamics Downloads channel on YouTube, so you can look forward to that up there.
All right, so I see a couple of questions out there, if I can address them. The question around the CRM connector, will it work with online or on if CRM's online? It will work with CRM online or on-premise, so it will work with either of those two. That is just obviously you need to have it running somewhere so it can see your online version, but it does support doing that, and that's basically the connector itself. So you do have that functionality. Another comment. Here's a question. Does the CRM connector, does it handle anything between quotes and orders? Currently it does not. Now what it's going to need is to get information from CRM into SL is a web service that's focused on sales orders and so forth. Currently right now the web services that we have enabled are web services around customer. We have a web service around setting up projects and budgets, a web service for project time entry, project expense entry. And I can tell you the next couple that we're coming out there is the first focus is to get a lot of the project web services done so we can start creating those, as you probably heard in other presentations, those user interfaces to that. When we get those project interfaces completed, then this is definitely one that's on the list. I don't have exact timing because, again, we're still working on the other ones right now, but these are definitely items that are being considered for the future. If you'd like to make sure we know how important these particular web services are to you, we do have the product suggestion tool available on Microsoft that allows us to get your feedback. Obviously, we've taken the initial feedback from our customers saying that these other ones in the project area needed to be done first, but we're definitely looking forward to your feedback as well. As Carolyn said, you do need to be on it for all these features. You need to be at least SL 2011. A couple of those bleed back to 7, but I'd definitely get yourself up on SL 2011 Service Pack 1 or Feature Pack 1 to start taking advantage of the new functionality that's available. Definitely, the more you get, the more features we've added to it, so we'll definitely continue to do that. And I think with that, I think we've answered all the questions that I've seen. Again, as Melanie said, if you have any questions, and if you're like me, I think of a question as soon as I hang up, you do have an email address, msdynamicsevents@gmail.com. Please email there. The questions will get to Carolyn or myself, and we'd be happy to answer them for you.
All right, well, I'll give a final thanks to you, Carolyn and Jeff, for presenting today, and thank you for all the attendees for taking time out of your day to attend our webinar. Our next Dynamics Downloads webinar will be on Wednesday, June 19th from 2 to 3 p.m. Eastern Time, and the topic will be Business Analyzer. So we look forward to having you again. So thanks, everyone, and have a good afternoon.
Great. Thank you.